Hi Student 1, this is Professor Campbell here to give you my comments and suggestions on the rough draft of your health promotion paper. First of all, I would like to commend you on all the work that you put into the project so far. This is a very detailed and comprehensive project, and it's evident that you have put a lot of time into it. I want to start with your APA formatting. I don't want to spend much time on this because I realize that this is a rough draft, and I'm sure that you have not concentrated on your APA yet. You have the basic layout of the paper with the cover sheet, abstract, the paper body, and your references in place. So I just want to mention that there are some issues with your formatting. There are some punctuation and grammatical errors. I have highlighted and noted some of these that you need to look at and make some corrections. You can see in the side everything is highlighted with my notes, so check them out. I'm not going to go over all of them, but be sure to review them before you do your final draft. I do want to say great job gathering information, locating some good relevant sources. With a little tweaking, all the information you have will make a nice complete health promotion paper. So let's discuss the content of the paper. You have a lot of assessment information on your patient, but it seems to be kind of scattered throughout the paper. It's difficult to see the elements of a good patient assessment here. You should have in one area of the paper a thorough patient assessment that includes a physical assessment, giving us all the pertinent assessments including height, weight, BMI, vital signs. You should tell us about capillary refill, the patient's skin condition and coloring, breath sounds, oxygen saturation, and any other assessments that you feel are applicable to the patient's physical condition. These areas would be very important for us to know about your patient. Other assessments that need to be noted are the patient's active diagnosis, their medical history, family history. I see here in the abstract that you noted the patient's mother had been diagnosed with breast cancer, but it's not noted in any part of a history in the body of the paper. We also need to know about the medications the patient is on, aside from Coumadin. Because there is an activity and obesity issue noted with the patient, as part of the assessment, we should have details on what the patient's current level of activity is, information about her current diet. Lastly, in order to create a good plan for the patient, we should know what things she has tried in the past, what she sees as a barricade to success of any interventions that have not worked for her. All of this information should be well organized so the reader doesn't have to hunt through the paper for the information. Okay, your nursing diagnoses. The nursing diagnoses that you picked for your patient are right on the mark. They are applicable, speak to the patient's most important health issues. This shows me that you have a good understanding of the patient's complicated problems and you have a grasp of the basic care planning process. I feel the biggest problem with your care plan section is organization. I'm really just going to review to you your first care plan, and then you can take my comments and apply them to all of the other plans in your paper. The first step of your care plans. Care plans should follow a specific setup when being presented so that your readers can see that you have all of the elements in your plans and that there's a clear connection with your patient's problems and the plan for improvement. You kind of have things a little backwards with your goals before your interventions. It just doesn't flow the way a normal care plan flows. first thing you should be discussing is your assessments. The assessments that are specific to the nursing diagnosis that you're going to discuss. Tell us what assessments there are that led you to choosing your specific nursing diagnosis. Next, you're going to give us that nursing diagnosis. You included good diagnoses. I like the way you gave a definition for the diagnosis, but you need to be sure to cite where you got that definition from and give credit. After the nursing diagnosis, like you have, is your related factors. And you've got PB experiences, discomfort or shortness of breath, verbally reports fatigue. So those are good subjective related factors. They should be included with your related factors down here. Let's see, what else did I want to say? Your related factors, or as evidenced by. These are the things that are connecting the diagnosis to the patient. Why is this a good diagnosis for your patient? This is why this is a good diagnosis for your patient. You did, like I said, you did include subjective and objective data for this section, but be sure that the data you include has a clear connection between the patient assessments, the specific diagnosis that you're using. So what is the assessment evidence you found that supports your selection of this nursing diagnosis? Next, you're going to list your goals. You skipped your goals and went to your interventions, but your goals should be what comes next. Using the list of the related evidence that you found, you need to tell us what the goals the patient has to meet in order to improve or correct the problem that's noted in the diagnosis. Think about what the patient would have to accomplish in order for the nursing diagnosis to no longer apply for the patient. Your goals need to be measurable so that you will know when the patient has reached the goal. There must be a time frame in which you want the patient to achieve the goal. A good set of goals includes short-term and long-term goals that have a time frame, they are measurable, and they have a clear connection to the patient's problem and the nursing diagnosis. Then, once you have the goals set, you need to list your proposed nursing interventions. What are you going to do, or what are you going to help the patient do in order to reach those goals that you just made? These must be directly connected to the specific patient goals for this nursing diagnosis. They need to be something that is doable, something that is reasonable for this patient. This is an area where you should be sure of getting the patient's input. There is no point in selecting interventions that the patient is going to refuse or that the patient is going to consider unreasonable. The last section should be your evaluation section. Now you have put in here as assessment. I'm assuming that this is your post-assessment, kind of like your evaluation. In this section, you should tell us about how you are going to evaluate the patient's progress. We should be able to understand how you're going to monitor the improvements in this patient's status, how you're going to gather the information and make a decision as to whether or not the patient has reached a goal or if the goals and the interventions need to be changed. Your last section of your paper, after you get through all of your awesome nursing diagnoses, is your conclusion. Get back up here. Okay. There shouldn't be any new information introduced in your conclusion. Basically, your whole conclusion here is a lot of information that wasn't discussed in the paper, and there should not be any new information. You need to summarize what you learned in the project, summarize what you've written. I usually like to write one sentence on each of the sections of the paper to ensure that everything that I've written ties together and that there's a flow from section to section. So, student 1, these are my suggestions for improving your paper. If you have any questions while completing your final draft, drop me an email or call me during my office hours, and I will be glad to answer any questions you may have.